On the 24th of December 2013, Darren Spivey couldn't wait to share his love of scuba diving with his 15-year-old son Dylan Sanchez, who was just as eager to explore the dark depths. Spivey gifted his son with 2 scuba tanks and a diving suit. Next morning they head out for a dive that cost them their life. These are the events that took place on that fateful day. On the morning of Christmas 2013, Darren along with his son Dylan took their car and head out for a local dive site in their area. Because of the Christmas holiday, they found the dive site closed. So, still wanting to use the scuba gear, Darren decided they are going to dive the Eagle's Nest. This is a no ordinary cave. Located in the Chassahowitzka Wildlife Management Area, Florida, Eagle's Nest is a notoriously treacherous underwater cave complex roughly 300 feet deep and one of the most dangerous places for divers to venture. It was closed in the late 1990s, but divers argued it was safe as long as someone is trained and experienced and had the right equipment with them. So far this cave system has claimed the lives of at least 13 divers, some of which were very experienced. After making the decision, Darren took his son to a wildlife management area in Central Florida. The wildlife area is open for hunting, diving, and hiking. In that park, there is a pond, and at the center of the pond, there is an entranceway down to the Eagle's Nest. The pair drove down a winding dirt road until they came to a parking lot in front of a wooden dock. This wooden dock had several signs posted, warning visitors of the dangers ahead. Although Darren was certified to dive, he did not have his certification to dive in caves. His son had neither certification. Despite the signs, Darren and his son put on their scuba gear and waddled their way across the dock and towards the water. In the middle of the pond is a narrow but long tunnel that descends deep into the earth. The pair grab hold of a guideline to guide themselves through the narrow entry point of the cave system, which was the only entrance and exit. The water inside was murky, so the guideline was necessary. Once in this narrow passageway, they would swim until they could no longer see any sunlight. At the end of the passage was a massive cavern called the ballroom. The duo exited the narrow passageway and floated just below inside the ballroom. They shined their light in any direction and did not see a single wall. No matter how powerful the light was, it could not reach the sides of the cavern. The guideline goes all the way to the bottom of the ballroom, which is about 130 feet down. At the bottom, there is a sign with a picture of Grim Reaper on it which advises people to not go any farther beyond this point and prevent their death. Beyond the sign, the ballroom splits off into 2 small caves. At certain points, these caves reach a depth of 300 feet. A current also runs in Eagle's Nest that is known to pull divers off the guideline and into darkness. Since the cave system was too big, divers would struggle to find the only exit after losing sight of the guideline. Also, it is pitch black down there. Recreational diving is considered anything from 0 to 130 feet. You only need regular air in your tanks and don't need special gear for that depth. If someone is to dive more than 130 feet, they would need special air in their tanks, specific equipment, and additional training. Despite these warnings and under-equipped, the pair decided to dive beyond the sign, into the darkness. Darren's fiancée hadn't heard from him or their son in many hours, and when the sun began to set, she decided to drive there herself to look for them. Just before the boys had gotten in the water, Darren had texted her so she would know where they were diving. Darren's fiancée found his car parked near the dock. Fearing for the worst, she decided to call the police. Police quickly arrived on the scene and brought recovery divers with them, who were trained to look for missing divers. They decided to go into Eagle's Nest in case Darren and Dylan had gotten stuck. They followed the guideline through the narrow passage and into the ballroom. The divers stopped just outside of the passage and shined their lights up at the ceiling. It was common for divers to get stuck near the exits of underwater caves. Unfortunately, this also happened to Dylan. His body was found just 6 feet from the exit of the ballroom, trapped against the ceiling. He had activated his water wings, which are emergency flotation devices used to assist in bringing divers to the surface quicker. His mouthpiece was out of his mouth and his oxygen tank had run out of air. The recovery divers followed the guideline to the bottom of the ballroom where they discovered Darren's body next to the sign that warned divers from going any farther. His mouthpiece had fallen out and his tank was also empty. Both Darren and Dylan's gauges showed that they had gone down to 230 feet. They were certainly not equipped to handle a dive such as that. They did not have the proper gas mix in their tanks that would allow them to breathe at such depths. They also did not have the proper training or equipment before the dive. Their deaths were investigated and it was assumed that the pair had followed the guideline to the bottom of the ballroom. From there, They went down into one of the two caves and reached a depth of 230 feet. It was believed that they developed something called nitrogen narcosis. This occurs when divers descend below a depth of 100 feet. Nitrogen narcosis is the drowsy feeling divers get that is brought on by air under high pressure. It can make divers feel drunk and impair judgment, which is a very dangerous thing in deepwater diving. If Darren and Dylan were in that state, they could have easily lost track of time and how much air they were using. It was assumed that by the time they had gotten back to the ballroom, they were dangerously low on air. Investigators believe that the son ran out of air first. Dillian must have shown his father his air gauge and that it was low. Darren most likely took out his regulator and put it in his son's mouth, and they began buddy breathing as they tried to leave Eagle's Nest. However, Darren's tank would have run out of air very shortly after this. Assumedly, Darren passed out from lack of oxygen and sank to the bottom of the cave. Dylan must have taken one last big breath of air and then tried to swim to the top. He deployed his water wings to make himself go faster. In their panic, they must have lost the guideline and Dylan was unable to find the exit. The deaths of Darren Spivey and Dylan Sanchez were tragic. They were not the first or the last divers to perish in this infamous underwater cave system. If you do decide to explore this magnificent and terrifying cave, be sure to come prepared. If you made it this far, I want to thank you for watching. If you want to support us, leave us a like, share or comment your thoughts below. And if you enjoy this type of content, make sure you subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our uploads. Until then, see you next time.